All right, we'll get started. So today I'm going to try to answer the question as best I can. How do I prepare my business for a future sale? And this is a great question that should be asked of all business owners, because eventually the time is going to come to sell the business one way or another. And what that looks like is different for different businesses, for different people. The answer to this question depends, are you trying to sell to a outside third party? Are you trying to sell to somebody within your family, passing it down to a kid or a grandchild, or maybe it's a key employee who's going to take over from you? All of these circumstances will factor into kind of the preparation process, because it depends. How you prepare to sell a business depends on who the buyer is. That's in a short way of saying it. But what I aim to do today is just kind of give some general points on how to prepare your business for a sale and potentially increase the purchase price for when the time of sale comes. And the way that we typically start with preparing a business for sale is with some of this corporate organization slash corporate hygiene stuff. Um, and really everything that I'm going to address comes down to the simple fact that when a buyer is buying a business, they're buying a stream of income. And the more certain that stream of income is, the greater the premium on the price, basically the business, the premium on the business. So for all business owners, when you're preparing your business for sale, you should be asking, how can I make this stream of income most certain to a prospective buyer? Is really the shortest way of saying it. And it starts, like I said, with some corporate organization slash hygiene, making sure, hey, the board of directors, have they been properly elected? Do we have managers in our LLC? Have we moved some things around? Have people left the business? Um, do we need to enter some consents to clean things up? Is our governing documents, our LLC agreement, our bylaws, are these clear and concise? Do they actually reflect the way that we're running the business? Do we want them to change? Um, and getting these things ironed out when you're preparing to sell the business is really helpful, because all of a sudden it comes time to sell. And if you're trying to figure out, oh, okay, who has authority to sell this business? Oh, well, I had a business partner that left 6 years ago and we never sorted it out. And now we're trying to sort it all out right before the sale, can make things difficult. So some of that corporate hygiene stuff. Another thing is making sure that the IP associated with the business is secure. Do you have any trademarks that you could go and get? Do you have any trade dress or anything, copyrights, patents? Obviously, it depends on what the business does. But locking down that IP makes certain for a buyer that they're limiting their risk when they come in and buy, because there's infringement protection built into the IP. Then and that kind of all boils down into this corporate organization slash hygiene stuff. It's just trying to tee up everything that the business already does and make sure internally it's operating efficiently and with clarity. The next point is on the accounting side of things. When businesses begin starting the journey of preparing to sell, oftentimes the books are a little bit jumbled. And it's not always the case, but to the extent that the bookkeeping is a little messy, it's really helpful to get things organized, and laid out clearly. So all of a sudden we can see how the business is performing. We can see how it's performed in the past and project out into how it's going to be performing into the future. Again, this is something that's kind of a snapshot of the business health, when a buyer is going to come and figure out if they want to buy or not. And the better the books look, the more certainty that they're going to have. Um, and so getting some bookkeeping help or accounting help can be really helpful. Kind of on that same vein, um, is getting a valuation. And obviously this comes in, one of the primary questions is, okay, how far until I'm actually going to sell my business should I start the planning process? The answer is yes. You should start planning now for when the eventual sale happens, and it could be really small things like getting a valuation. Oftentimes, people think that you only get business valuations right before you sell. And sometimes that is the case. That is how people operate. But actually getting regular valuations can be really helpful because it operates as a report card for a business. We can see how it's been doing. If you get a valuation every, 5 years, give or take, um, we can see how the business is done. Is it improving or not? When a buyer is coming to look to see if they want to buy the business, they can look at these report cards and really get a snapshot into how the business is operating and what the buyer could expect the business to do moving forward. So getting those valuations can be really helpful. And this last point that I'll talk about here in terms of the preparation is potential restructuring. Uh, and this is it's difficult to answer this generally, but oftentimes, depending on the structure of your business, there can be opportunities for restructuring to perhaps give you the best tax advantage in the event that a sale comes. For example, in Trump's big, beautiful bill, they added a provision that, excuse me, if you're a C Corp for 5 years and you sell your business, I believe you get capital gains exemptions up to $5 million on the sale, and it can be tiered. But anyways, there can be some reorganization stuff to maybe take advantage of certain tax provisions. And so just asking the question early, knowing how far out in advance you're thinking you might want to sell, if you wanted to take advantage of the provision that I just brought up, well, we need to do some restructuring now if you want to sell the business in 5 years. When we get to the time to actually sell, sometimes these restructuring options become more limited for the tax advantage purposes that might be out there. So those are just some general things to consider when you're thinking about whether or not you want to sell your business and what you can do to prepare the business for an eventual sale. One thing that I'll throw out as a bit of a shameless plug, our firm does business reviews, which kind of operate as health checks for a business that kind of treats it at the business as, okay, let's imagine you were going to sell. What would we need to clean up and fix before you actually go and do it? And so we address all of these corporate hygiene things, these accounting things. We take a look at your books. We work with business valuators, and sometimes recommend that you go and get a business valuation to see how you're doing. Sometimes we recommend restructuring of your business for a host of different reasons, but all of which would be laid out in the business review. We also talk about things like, diversification. A lot of business owners have almost all of their wealth built up in their business. And so diversifying away from your business, while it seems scary because it's, your business is your livelihood that you've been building for your whole life, there are ways and tools to diversify your wealth away from your business while still maintaining your business in peak capacity. Um, Obviously, there's some estate planning bits. If your succession plan as a business owner is to pass it down to your kids or, nieces, nephews, a key employee, things like that, this all should work together with your estate plan. And so it should be a cohesive business and personal plan all of which should be considered. And so starting the planning process early, we can help address those questions, figure out what questions even to ask to generate the best sale price in the event of a potential sale. So thank you and enjoy your Thursday.